Hi everyone, I am Mark, and today I will talk about AMPD, a company that blends the convenience of cloud with the advantages of sustainable, high-performance computing. And I am with Anthony Brown, CEO and co-founder of the company. How are you, Anthony?
I'm doing very well, thank you. How are you doing today?
I'm great. So could you tell us more about the AMPD? What's the story behind how you had the idea of founding the company?
Well, actually, that kind of starts all the way back around 2000. I started a company called Seven Group, and Seven Group built out high performance compute infrastructure for animation, visual effects, and video game studios. In
Mm-hmm.
fact, by around 2008, we estimate that we had somewhere in the range of about 70% market share, dealing with all the major players, the Technicolors and EAs and Activisions and so on of the world. And then we went on this side to get on the other side of the glass, and spun up a company called Infinite Game Publishing, and we published
Okay.
Mech Warrior Online. In fact, those are the covers of PC Gamer behind me there,
Okay.
for Mech Warrior Online. And when we launched Mech Warrior Online, it was an eSports style game, very high fidelity, and we had millions of players. And this is where we really first encountered some of the challenges with the cloud and the internet as it stands today. Whenever you're dealing with a latency sensitive application, especially one with high fidelity graphics, especially one where you have millions of people playing it at the same time,
Mm-hmm.
you really end up with some challenges with the current infrastructure that's out there. And the way to solve it is this concept of high performance computing at the edge, where you
Okay.
use a little bit of a different compute architecture, and then you put it in the cities where it's being used. And that's really kind of how AMPD came about. Was, we recognized that this problem really needed to be solved, and we embarked on solving it.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And so about AMPD, could you tell us more about the company? So what problems they are specifically solving, for example?
Sure. So really, the companies that are dealing with latency sensitive applications, basically mostly metaverse applications. So these are applications of being able to do real time rendering of graphics, interactive applications where you have people talking to
Mm-hmm.
other people and so on, and you have to send data very quickly from the end device to the computer and back again.
Okay.
That's how you measure your latency. Is the problem we're solving? And currently, the people that are using this technology have a pretty tough choice. They can either go ahead and build out this architecture in a data center on premises inside a studio, for example, if you're making a video game or a movie or something like that,
Mm-hmm.
or they can use cloud services that are not really as performant and very expensive. AMPD
Okay.
solves that problem by giving you all of the performance that you would have as if the compute was right on prem and designed to handle that specific type of application, and then the convenience of cloud. You can just dial into it remotely, manage it all remotely. You don't have to build a data center. You just
Okay.
use it as you need to use it. So we give them kind of the best of both worlds, and that's the underlying kind of core infrastructure or core piece of what AMP does, is this high performance compute at the edge infrastructure, this next generation of digital infrastructure, which is what's required to be able
Mm-hmm.
to host the metaverse. The next thing we're doing, though, is as you know, we had our private placement recently, and we are acquiring a company called the Departure Lounge. And the Departure Lounge brings the next level of metaverse technologies along with it to be able to do things like 4D volumetric capture,
Okay.
be able to do things like virtual production, all of the things that's required to create content for the metaverse. So by doing this, we end up with a company that has the technology to do the underlying infrastructure to host the metaverse and create content. And then
Mm-hmm.
we have the tools and technologies to actually create that content. If you
Okay.
like, I have a little video on this first meta stage thing that we're building.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm happy to share that with you if you like.
Oh, it would be definitely great because let's say even for me, like metaverse and all these new technologies, for me, like you would talk about it, like I'll be very confused. So A video, a
You
video
know,
is gonna be
a
perfect.
video. If a picture's worth 1,000 words, a video is worth a million words. So let's
It's the best thing I ever heard. Perfect.
let's see if we can do this here. I will bring up this file for you. Now, this is from a deck that we recently put together during our private
Okay.
placement. And can you see that okay?
Yeah. Okay, I'm just gonna add it right now. Okay, so right now we have the presentation you were talking about.
Yep. So this video that I'm going to show you here, I'm going to just start it from the beginning for you. This video that I'm going to show you here, this is of MetaStage. Now, MetaStage is a company based in LA. They are
Okay.
the world leading volumetric capture studio. They use 106 cameras in this green screen environment and can capture a live performance within that volume, within those cameras.
Okay.
There's no need for any of those, leotards with the little ping pong balls on them or anything like that.
Mhm.
You're actually capturing in full volumetric 3D what's happening inside the volume. Now, imagine how this can apply to something like, let's say, the UFC. And this is an actual test that's done with the UFC. There's Georges St. Pierre, by the way, on the left. Imagine what happens watching a UFC fight where you could watch the fight from the eyes of the fighter. The impact
Oh,
to
okay, yeah.
the impact to education, e-commerce. This is a video game called Blade Runner 2049, where you actually, instead of little avatars, you're interacting with the actors that were captured in the stage. The impact for live performances, for seminars and museums, and
Okay.
really kind of creating this concert events, etc. Creating this stuff for the metaverse is kind of this next step of what we're doing. That's Charlie XCX, by the way, from a Samsung commercial. All they had to do was just shoot her once in the meta stage using those cameras, then they were able to place her anywhere in the world for that commercial. So it's pretty fantastic technology.
Mhm.
That's just one of the things that we're going to be doing with our friends over at MetaStage. We're building MetaStage Canada or MetaStage Vancouver here as part of this acquisition with Departure Lounge, and we'll be doing more and more things along those lines. So the idea is a full 360-degree metaverse company, one that has the technology to create the content and host the content for people to use, and then to actually have the tools required to create volumetric data, that full 3D experience, so that as the metaverse comes essentially a 3D internet, you're able to experience it with AMPD.
This is crazy because everybody was talking about the metaverse, and even let's say for me, like, okay, I was hearing about it in the news, but I didn't know what it was specific. And the fact that you explain, it's very interesting, and it's actually crazy because even if you're talking about like virtual world back then, like there would be still a difference between like reality and the virtual world, and with this, I would say crazy technology, like the limit between virtual and real world is very thin, right?
Absolutely. And what we're going to see is, as the metaverse comes about, it will basically replace the internet the way we use it today. So instead
Okay.
of a 2D search engine with Google, you'll have your virtual assistant do your searching for you. Instead of clicking a mouse and typing a keyboard, you'll just speak and gesture and move through
Okay.
the experience. It's going to really be primarily, I believe, and this is my belief, but primarily I believe the metaverse will be accessed through augmented reality glasses that'll be connected to a phone or something like that to be able to get the compute for those glasses, as opposed to a big headset for virtual
Mhm.
reality. I think virtual reality will also continue to grow, and having a more immersive experience in the metaverse will also increase. But I think the day-to-day interaction with the metaverse will most likely be through augmented reality as an overlay on top
Mhm.
of reality as we know it. So you'd be able to, walk down a street, and as somebody's coming the other way, your facial recognition on your glasses will recognize this person. It'll look them up on Facebook, and you go,
Oh,
"Oh
it's
yeah, I know
perfect.
you."
It's gonna help me a lot. Like for this, it's gonna help me a lot because I always forget people's face. So it's gonna be perfect. And I guess this market might be growing super fast. So could you like give us an example just about your company between last year and this year, if you saw an evolution?
Well, we've always been telling people about our technology as kind of the hosting company for the metaverse.
Okay.
When we first launched the company to take it public back in October 2019, my first speech, I was really highlighting the Oasis from Ready Player One, this
Mhm.
virtual world that's depicted in the book and in the movie of a virtual reality where everybody in the world can interact together,
Mhm.
and basically saying this next generation of experience will have to have a new type of compute platform to support it. And so from that aspect, we haven't really changed much. That's always been our message. But it when we did the last private placement, of course, we announced it, and then 2 days later, our friends over at Facebook
Mhm.
announced the name change to Meta, investing in $10 billion or something like that in the metaverse. And so the metaverse has become more of a household name than it was. But really, that's been our goal from the beginning. What has changed is moving into the next level of tools and technologies, and working with things like NFTs, working with all the different pieces of what's required for the metaverse to work, and becoming a full 360 metaverse company. Initially,
Mhm.
AMPD was really an infrastructure company, kind of the picks and shovels for the metaverse, if you will. Now we're still, don't get me wrong, we're still creating tools and technologies for other people to create content
Okay. Yeah.
for the metaverse. So it's still sort of picks and shovels, but it's the next level up.
Yeah, for sure. I see what
From,
you mean. Yeah.
yeah.
And so, because we have to talk about finance as well, because you were talking about the private placement, all the
Mhm.
gears, you know. So right now, if we talk about EBITDA, Ryan, do you have a positive or negative EBITDA?
We'd have a negative EBITDA now. I mean,
Okay.
so the company does have revenue. I mean, like here's the thing. Back in the day when the internet was coming out, I'm old enough to actually remember when that was happening. And basically anybody that had a 4-letter URL would come up with a business plan, and they'd raise money against it. And really, the companies that ended up sustaining and actually becoming big internet companies were the ones that actually had revenue, had a
Mhm.
product, had something that they were bringing to market. And I think that's the advantage we have, as opposed
Okay.
to we did something like 1.7 million, I think, in that range in our last fiscal year. But that was, monthly recurring revenue associated with companies that were hosting on our platform, using our product, and very happy customers. In fact, like writing white papers with us about
Mhm.
how great the technology is and so on. And I think that's the big differentiator. We're going to see, now we're going to see a dramatic growth in the revenue. We already
Okay.
are. We announced a deal just a few months ago from Bardell Entertainment for their new storage system. We're going to see more and more of these things. The hockey stick is kind of already happening. We're looking at almost 8x the revenue is what we're
Okay.
shooting for. Well, not 8x. We're looking for around 8.1 million for fiscal 2022, which ends in May
Okay.
31st. And so that's just the beginning of the ramp up in revenue. We expect it to grow dramatically after that. But the fact that we actually have products, have revenue, have customers right now, that's what differentiates us as a metaverse company. This
Okay.
is not
So
this is
just
not a
it's like
concept,
it's like literally if you have like all the planets are aligned and you're ready like to rock the metaverse world, right?
That's right. Well, I mean, don't get me wrong. The metaverse is a big thing, right?
Mhm.
It's for us to say that we're going to make the metaverse, or that we're like the metaverse company or something, would be a misnomer. Who made the internet? Who was the internet company? I mean,
Mhm.
there's going to be a lot of companies that
Yeah,
are
for sure.
addressing this
I
market.
see what you
It
mean.
is a multi-trillion dollar evolution from the internet to the metaverse. And there's going to be applications that apply to Industry 4.0, healthcare, manufacturing. You think of it, and there's applications that a 3D interactive model immersive experience are
Mhm.
going to have a positive effect on.
Yeah, so,
Um,
so basically the only boundaries for like this technology would be like people's imagination, right?
that's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So James Hursthouse, our CSO, who will be the CEO of the division Departure Lounge, will be, one of his big things. He's a big big music fan. And,
Mhm.
he's like, look, we could have a concert. If you look at it that way, that's just as a concept. If you look at it that way, the we really are ending, like the we're able to go past mortality now by
Mhm.
being able to have a virtual self that remains alive in the metaverse, and that's just it's
Oh, yeah,
mind-blowing
I
stuff.
see what you
It's
mean.
yeah.
And just because you were talking a lot about the private placement and something like caught my eyes, when I was reading it, I saw that you have a leverage on the warrants you granted, that
Mhm.
if it was the share price rate reach 80 cents, sorry, you
Mhm.
could modify the time for exercising the warrants, right? Could you
Yeah,
tell us more why you did this?
yeah. So basically, the way the warrants work is they don't expire for 2 years.
Okay.
However, if the stock price goes past 80 cents on a 5 day or 10 day, I can't remember, rolling VWAP,
Mhm.
then an execution clause is triggered, and you have, I think, 20 days or so to exercise those shares. The
Okay.
reason for that is so that as much as we want to grant warrants as an incentive for the private placement, we don't want to have the overhang of the price of those warrants remaining when the stock is,
Hmm.
doing very well, going past 80 cents to a buck or whatever.
Okay, I see.
It's a fairly standard, a part of warrants. A lot of warrants come with this sort of thing. So what all that it'll mean is that once the stock goes at 80 cents for that rolling VWAP, then they
Hmm.
have to execute them at 50 cents. So I mean, they're in the money
Okay.
when
Yeah,
when
yeah,
they have to be
okay, I
executed.
understand. Okay.
Yeah.
No, it's pretty interesting because when I read this first, like I'm not like super smart, so I had to rethink. I had to reread it. I was like, what does it mean? And after when I saw this strategy, I was like, it's actually pretty smart because most of the time, some companies they don't do what you did, and it's hampering the stock price because it's not moving because these institutions they keep on exercising their warrants and keep diluting on a longer time. So
Hmm.
no, for sure, it's a very smart strategy. And so after what you said about the private placement, all this type of thing, um, what would you say could happen in short-term catalyst? Let's say we start like Q1 22. What could we see in this period, for example?
Well, I mean, first of all, we have to execute on the agreement with Departure Lounge to finalize the acquisition, and that's very imminent. As you know, we already announced it and so on. So it's just finishing the paperwork on that front, and then of course the deployment of the meta stage, which we'll be doing within that
Okay.
first quarter. The launch of the pods that we announced earlier this year. So that's putting this high performance compute infrastructure in LA, Vancouver, and Amsterdam.
Okay.
And so we'll be announcing all of those. Of course, as we have more customers coming on, and there are customers we expect to close during that period as well. And so we'll be announcing those customers who are coming onto the platform, using the platform. We have, lots of other things that we're looking at
Okay.
in
Awesome.
there, but I think that's probably all I'd be allowed to say. But I mean, there's going to be a lot of
It's really more
activity.
than enough for sure.
Yeah, yeah. There's gonna be a lot of activity between now and the end of the first quarter for sure.
And so, because we're talking about really short term, but let's say between you and me, like we look at the company and we talk about it in, in 5 years. Where would you see the company?
Well,
I know it's hard to
five
say,
years,
but
five
just
years.
like you
All right.
target,
Well,
for example.
I'm a kind of an ambitious guy.
Okay.
I've been running technology companies for about 25 years. The metaverse is an absolutely ridiculously tremendous opportunity. It is a giant shift that's happening in technology. I believe that right now we have some advantages as a company that put us at the forefront of this
Okay.
wave. So when you look at the potential 5 years out, I mean, if we execute well and we do everything as we plan to do, we're looking at a multi-billion-dollar company on the
Wow.
Nasdaq. That's, I mean, certainly that's the goal,
Mhm.
and that's what we're building for. I hope that's not too much of a forward-looking statement. You are asking me for 5 years out, but I mean that's our intention is
Well,
to be a metaverse megacorp, and
it's crazy.
you know,
I mean, I was about to say congrats, but I will say in 5 years. I
yeah,
don't
yeah,
know if you
right,
see,
right.
I have stars in my eyes just listening to you. And when I see your ambition, how ambitious you are, it makes me wonder, uh, because I know I know it's gonna be inspiring for me, but at what stage of your life you knew or you decided you would like to accomplish like big projects?
Oh, I've been an entrepreneur since I was a kid. Um,
Okay.
I've always been an entrepreneur. I had a small stint in the army for a little
Okay.
while, and had to make a living other ways other than my own companies for a while. But ever since I was now I'm over 50. I'll leave it at that. But
Okay.
probably since I was 25, I've been running technology companies, and I don't know. I've always had this ambition. So, I mean, Seven Group was very successful. Ran that for 12 years. Infinite Game Publishing. We published MechWarrior Online. I'm a giant mech fan. Like I played the
Okay.
BattleTech game when I was when I was 15 years old. So, that was a dream of mine to get accomplished, and we did. We launched, MechWarrior Online, a 3 million player, you
Wow.
know,
Okay.
great, amazing game. We were, cover of PC Gamer a few times and rated number 19 in the top 25 shooters of all time. And, I mean, I've always been ambitious. Now, this, grant you, is probably the most ambitious project I've ever undertaken. Um, but as I say, any overnight success is 15 years in the making. I'm not saying that we're an overnight success yet. Things are going pretty well, but we have a long road to go yet. We're just getting started. I want to thank everybody that came in on the private placement. We were well oversubscribed. We more than doubled what we went to market for, which is going to really put some great fuel in the tank and help us to accelerate our growth. And I'm really excited about the future. I think, I think things are looking pretty damn good right now. So I don't know. My ambition has always been there. I wouldn't know how to live any other way, I guess.
This is awesome. Well, I really enjoy listening to first your company more about your personal life. Even for me, it's very inspiring. So I just hope that when you be a multi-billion-dollar company, you won't forget about money to do an interview with us. It's
Not at
my
all.
only
Not at all.
requirement.
Actually, just as a little funny point, we acquired a company earlier this year called Cloud A. They're a national cloud company in Canada. Their original name was Cloud A, spelt the same way, EH,
Oh.
because they're Canadian-based company. So they did change it to the letter A, but yeah, just little known fact, they used to be called Cloud A, and we acquired them. So interesting to be on Money A, and have that little connection.
Well, this is awesome. Thank you again for your time, and
My
hope
pleasure.
to hear again from you.
Looking forward to it.
Awesome. Thank you.